Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Annalie and I run the crochet account Wool and Buggers. It's been a really long time since I came on YouTube, but a lot has happened since I last posted a video, and a lot of those have been like big things. So we moved apartments, and then last summer Aleks and I actually got married. And today is actually our 1-year wedding anniversary. We ended up DIYing quite a lot of stuff for our wedding, so that's what this video is going to be focused on. I'm not going to delve too deeply into each DIY because then this video would be really long, but if you want a step-by-step tutorial for anything that I'm talking about in this video, feel free to let me know by dropping a comment. If not, I hope this video can just serve as inspiration if you're also in the process of wedding planning, or if you're party planning and want to incorporate some DIY elements. I've divided today's video into 3 main categories. So we have clothing, which is basically clothing that I crocheted for myself for the wedding. And then we have decor, which is both like venue decor, like bigger things, but then also smaller like table decor. We have signage as well. And then we have stationery, which is basically everything printed. So invites, save the dates, ceremony programs, all of that stuff. I'll link as much as possible below, but if you're wondering about anything, feel free to let me know and I'll get back to you. So let's start with the first category, which is clothing, which was definitely the most like stressful and time consuming, but also very worth it. And I always knew I wanted to crochet my own wedding outfits, so that's what I did. And I'm actually wearing one of the pieces right now that I crocheted for a wedding, but in total, I made my civil ceremony dress and then a 2-piece for our wedding reception. And so if you don't know me or Aleks, you might not know that we actually sort of got married twice because we were planning for, our big wedding on July 13th. But then during that spring of planning, we realized that there wasn't an officiator that was free to actually wed us on our day. So we had to find an alternative, which was getting officially married 2 weeks prior to our actual wedding. And then on our wedding, we had a friend officiate us informally, but legally we were already married. So the civil ceremony dress that I'm talking about is that small ceremony that we had 2 weeks prior to our wedding, which was just with our immediate family. And at this point we were fairly close to our wedding, so we were DIYing a bunch of other stuff. I knew I wouldn't have time to make my own pattern and think too much about it. And that's when I remember the Betty top / the Betty dress, which is a pattern that I've had my eyes on for forever. It's a pattern by Pearls PH, who's a wonderful pattern designer. And I remember when that pattern was being released, I saw all of these beautiful tester versions, including Softly Made Cottage, who made a white version, a dress, mid-length, puffy sleeves, really stunning. And I remember at that time thinking, oh, I could totally see myself, getting married in that dress. And so when I remembered that, I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to actually make something similar. So this is the result. This is what I made. This is me trying it on a couple of days before the ceremony, and then this is what it looked like on the actual day of. So I wore it with a pair of white, vintage looking Mary Janes that I found on Vinted. And then one of my close childhood friends put my hair in this big bun, which I felt also matched the vibe very nicely. We had our ceremony in our local park, which is a 10-minute walk from our apartment. We came back and we had a potluck picnic in our courtyard. And I feel like the dress just perfectly matched that day. And so yeah, I'm very happy with it. And then as for the process of making the dress, as soon as I settled on that pattern, I feel like the actual process of making it was quite quick. I think I finished the whole thing in around 10 to 12 days, and that included frogging and modifying and remaking parts of the pattern. And then for our actual wedding, I was working on the ceremony dress for our actual wedding for a long time, but I never ended up using it. I never ended up finishing it even, because it gave me so much anxiety. I'm not going to delve too much into detail, but I wanted to make an Irish lace top with a lace bottom on top of a slip dress. I ended up finishing the top, but I never lined it, so it's just been in my whip basket for the longest time, over a year now, and I haven't looked at it, I haven't touched it because it just stresses me out. But the thing is that everyone knew that I was crocheting my own dress, and everyone kept asking me about it, which is also, I think, why it was giving me so much anxiety. So I still wanted to crochet something for the actual wedding, but I knew I couldn't do the ceremony dress because it would just stress me out. So what I ended up doing for the ceremony at our actual wedding day was that I ended up getting a dress from Needle and Thread, which is a British wedding dress brand. That was really nice. And if you're sort of in a similar situation where, you know, you're crocheting your own outfits, remember that buying a dress or renting a dress or borrowing a dress is always an option. And don't feel ashamed for doing that, which, you know, might sound silly, but is an emotion that I battled when I decided to, you know, actually buy a dress. So what I ended up doing was that I ended up middle grounding myself, right? So I ended up making the civil ceremony dress, and then I made a two-piece for our reception dinner. We made this top, which is the yin top by Surratt, and then I combined that with the martini skirt by Wild Studio. So this is what it looks like when you put the two pieces together. You can totally layer these pieces as well so that they overlap more so that you don't have the elastic band show. I would have probably done that if I had a mirror before we took these pictures. And so the top was actually really quick to make. Really fun pattern because it's like it changes every row. And I think that's like one of Janice's or Surratt's specialties, is that she makes really intricate patterns that are really fun to make because new things happen every row, and that's sort of what I like. And that's why I do a lot of color work, because I don't really like the monotony of doing the same thing over and over again. So highly recommend this pattern, such a fun make, really quick as well. And then the martini skirt, on the morning of our wedding day, I was sewing the ends in. The skirt actually also took quite a long time because it's layered, but I feel like it was so worth it because the layers look absolutely stunning. And I did the first dance in that outfit, and I feel like the swirls of the skirt were just so nice. And yeah, I'm really happy with how these two pieces turned out. They both work really well to wear like independently of each other, but they also work really, really well together. And that's also something that I was looking for when I was deciding on what pieces to crochet, is that I didn't want to make something that took a really long time and then I would only wear it once. And for the civil ceremony dress, you know, I haven't worn it since the wedding, but I feel like that's a little different. And then for these pieces, these are actually things that I can wear on an everyday basis. Then we have decor, which is sort of a broad category. So in here we fit like both table decor, signs, smaller decor details, and we can start with our wedding arch, which my dad built. This is the sketch that he used. He said it was super easy to put together. It was also really lightweight, but still stable enough to be able to handle like outdoor conditions. And we ended up getting married actually on the rainiest day of the month. So we wanted to have an outdoor ceremony, then a storm came in. So we had to put up a tent. It wasn't really as pretty as I originally imagined, but oh well. If we move to decor in our reception venue, we had like signs, and then we had these fabric pennants that hung on the ceiling. And the fabric pennants ended up being one of my favorite decor DIYs. Super easy. Everything was sourced secondhand. All the fabric is basically old children's like bed sheets, and our friends helped make these, and they helped us rip the fabric, and then we tied it to yarn. A very low-key activity, so it was perfect to do, you know, and not focus too heavily on the actual crafting. So if you're looking for something to just like occupy your hands or employ your friends for something that is very easy to do, this is a perfect DIY for that. And then we made 3 signs, and before we started wedding planning, I had no idea that signage was like such a big thing in the wedding world. I felt peer pressured to have a lot of signs. So we made one fabric banner, which we put in our photo booth, and then we made a sign on a drawing easel that we got from IKEA, and then we made a foamcore thing that was inside the venue. So all of these were actually super easy to make. I bought a pack of illustrations from Etsy, and then Alex's sister also helped us make some illustrations too, and so that were the basis for those signs. The foamcore thing that was in our venue was a foamcore board that I wrote on using like these Posca pens. Also very easy, sketch it out with pencil first and then just fill it in. Then the IKEA easel, we actually never put the whole thing together, so we only used the blackboard part and then we leaned it against the wall. The only thing is that you can't really sketch out on blackboard, so I had to use the white pens immediately, which are just like blackboard pens. The good thing about that is that they're not permanent, so you can go in with water and remove it. It does leave a little bit of a smudge, but it's not super visible. So the IKEA easel thingy is like a child's product, so it's quite cheap as well, and then we ended up giving it away, so yeah. The fabric sign is here, which is just an old sheet, very wrinkled right now, and this is all just acrylic paint on a bed sheet that is folded in half. I mean, it's like very ugly if you look at it closely, but I cut a hole and then we tied it up on the wall. And what we ended up doing with this fabric banner is that we put it in our photo booth. So it was like the backdrop for our photos. I should have made a bigger backdrop in retrospect. We had like a last minute venue change and everything was super messy. We literally didn't know what our new venue looked like until like 5 days before our wedding. So that's a whole different story, but whatever. Oh, and I guess the actual photo booth was also DIY. We put a DSLR camera on a tripod, put it on self-timer, and then we added a clothing rack with a bunch of crochet stuff. So we had like crochet party hats, we had the star hat by Aleks and I, which is always a big hit. We had our matching mesh tops by Ty Bailey. If you don't want to rent a photo booth or do like an iPad solution, this was actually very nice. And I really love looking through these photos. I think they're really fun. It's a really nice memory to look back at. Moving on to table decor and our embroidered tablecloths. This is one of the things that I'm proudest of. I think Sarah Butte, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, is the original creator behind these embroidered tablecloths. And her tablecloths are super pretty and way above my level, but I knew we could DIY something similar but way easier. So the tablecloths are all made from bed sheets that were 240 times 260 centimeters. So they're like king size, and they were cut and then sewn squares. And then after they were cut and sewn, we used our actual plates and traced them, and I made cardboard forks and knives that we could trace around for cutlery. And we started this process like very early because I, in the planning process, was like, this is probably going to be the most time consuming thing. It was all going to be embroidered, and it's actually quite easy to hand embroider this. It just takes a long time. And then halfway through that process, we settled on the food and we ended up serving sushi. So at that point, I was like having a panic because I was like, wait, our tablecloths have like forks and knives. I was like, you don't eat sushi with forks and knives. What are we gonna do? So I made a pair of chopsticks in cardboard with a chopstick stand, and then we added that as well. So the final result was plate, fork and knife, and then a pair of chopsticks on the top. Dad really came through with this one. He did the majority of the tablecloths. I did one or two. He's always been really great with sewing and needlework, and I'm just so happy that he was able to help out. In the end, I think these look really lovely. It was a lot of work, but it's exactly what I was envisioning, so very happy with that. If we move to the actual tables and how they looked, we had painted candles for our family table, which was in the middle. Aleks and I spent an evening doing that. We got candles from IKEA and paint, and then just painted on the candles. I found it was a very cute and whimsical touch, and it also helped us bring the money for candles down, because if you want to get like actual fun candles that are like different colors or different shapes, those cost quite a lot. So we just got this big pack of white candles and then DIY'd them ourselves. And then to accompany the candles, we made matchstick boxes, which was also our wedding favor. But we couldn't find a place that would actually deliver matchboxes with a custom design in time for our wedding. So we ended up buying a bunch of matchsticks from Biltema, and then we ordered stickers that were the right dimensions. So we made the design in Canva, and then we stuck the stickers on the matchboxes. So fairly easy process. The only thing is that everything was way too small. I wasn't checking the dimensions properly. You can barely see what it says, so you have to really like squint to be able to read it. But cute detail, was a nice wedding favor. You know, people use matchsticks for candles, and nobody can always think about us and our wedding when they light a candle. For our tables and our table numbers, we had these hobby felt flags. These are basically just like a long piece of hobby felt with a triangle on each end that we cut out, and then I used a blanket stitch along the edges, and Aleks cut out all the numbers using an X-Acto knife, and then we used a hot glue gun to glue the numbers to the flags. This was a pretty easy DIY. It took us an afternoon to finish, and I think they turned out really nice. So the way we used them was that we put them in glass bottles in the middle of each table with some flowers and some other like centerpiece stuff. Very functional, but also very cute and easy way to showcase your table number. And then for finding the actual tables and like finding your seat, we made wine glass markers that we tied around champagne glasses. And the wine glass markers were actually easy and very fun to make. We got like a bunch of letter pearls and a mixed pack of beads at our local hobby store. And then we employed basically our friends to come over for dinner and craft night and help us make these. Friends actually seemed to enjoy this and seemed to think it was pretty fun. Because we had so many different people working on them as well, they look very different, which is fun because, you know, our friends would make the wine glass markers for people that they knew, so they would try to like match their personality. Here's some examples of how the different ones look. So they all have a little clasp and a little tail before the actual name starts. And this is for wrapping around the glass. And like on that table with all of the glasses, you have to have a sign that's like, find your table. So instead of just having a regular like 2D sign, I got this Brio iconic dog secondhand. This is a really old like children's toy. I feel like every Swedish kid has had one of these or have seen them or played with them at daycare. And I just wrote with the blackboard pen. Now it's disappeared a little bit, but it says find your table. I think 3D signs are a really nice touch, just to add a little bit of a playful vibe to your wedding. So now people are finding their table using these flags and their wine glass markers. But when they get to the table, we were like, okay, so how are they gonna find out where they're actually gonna sit at the table? So the way we solved that was that at each plate on our embroidered tablecloths, we put the napkin and then a reception program, and then we made name tags. And then we tied it all together like a little package. And the name tags are all just like cardboard circle gift tags that I stamped letters on. I enjoyed the process of stamping and I think it's a really nice touch. And that leads us to our last category, which is stationery. We designed and printed everything ourselves, including save the dates, invites, ceremony programs, reception programs, and like various small decor things around the venue. Neither of us had any prior experience with printing, so figuring out like bleed marks, cut marks, crop marks, printer marks, whatever it's called, was actually kind of difficult. I was like, you know, it's 2024, like how can it be so hard to print a paper and like, you know, make sure that the pages line up on each side and that it's even and that the design isn't cut off and that kind of stuff. In retrospect, I should have probably just saved time and gotten help from a professional, but since we had time and we were printing ourselves, we had the opportunity to test print a lot. But you could also, of course, just send your designs to a print expert or a print store and they will figure that out for you. So I guess we can start chronologically in this category. And so the first sort of piece that we sent out to our guests was a save the date. We sent the save the date quite early, I think around 10 months before our wedding, because we had a lot of people coming from abroad and we wanted to make sure that they could block off a piece of their upcoming summer to come to Sweden. At that time, we didn't have a color palette, so we just printed everything in black and white. So the save the dates are just an A5 on nice paper, one-sided print. And then 6 months before our wedding, we sent the actual invites. At that point, we had a color palette, which was matcha green and pink. So those were the two pieces that we sent out before the wedding. And so at the wedding, we had the ceremony program, which was a folded A4. The flower bouquets by Aleks' sister. It had the songs and performances that we had during our ceremony. And then because we had our ceremony in Swedish, but we had English-speaking guests, we also wrote and translated our vows and put them in the program. So when we were saying our vows in real life, our English-speaking friends could unfold the piece of paper and read along themselves. And then I had a lot of fun making our reception program, which is just an A4 printed on both sides to make 6 pages, folded like this. And so this is the front, and then you open it and had thanks to everyone that helped out with our wedding. We had a little quiz that was like, who are you in the Schiabrowski family? And you could end up being either me or our dog Luna or Alex. It had the food and drinks menu, and then the QR code for where we wanted people to upload photos. And then on the back, it had just a picture of us. And I thought this design was really fun to work on, and it was quite easy as well to lay out and print. I don't really know if our guest book counts as stationery, but I'm gonna include it here anyway because I don't know where to put it. But we had an alternative guest book situation, so we actually made a deck of playing cards with a custom design on the back. So it's Luna, and then it says A+A, Annalie and Alex, and our wedding date. This is ordered from Etsy, but I made the back design together with AI actually. So I prompted Midjourney for like a classic playing cards background with an English header, and then I tweaked it in Illustrator and I actually think it looks really nice. And then on the front is a bunch of cute messages from our friends. And I think the negative thing about this sort of alternative guest book, like the playing cards specifically, is that it's very small, like it's a deck of cards. So I don't think people really realized, or they didn't even see that this was available to sign. And so what happened, and we didn't find out about this until afterwards, was that one of our really close friends grabbed the entire deck, and then he was just like, he saw it as his mission throughout the night to go through and have people sign it. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful that he did that. So we have a bunch of messages from our friends that are just like really heartwarming to go through. So yeah, if you're looking for an alternative guest book, look into getting a deck of playing cards, and I'll link the Etsy seller that we actually ordered this from. It came in this really nice box as well. It says Our Wedding, and I'll link it all below. And then we also had just like various signs up at the venue. So for a guest book, we had this sign that explained how to sign it. We had a QR code for like a disposable camera app that we were using. And at the tables as well, as part of the centerpiece, we had these like signs with random facts about everyone that was sitting at the table, just to, you know, get people talking. We were mixing our friend groups quite a lot, and so people had never met each other at the table, and we wanted to get the conversation going. And you know, when you're planning for your wedding and you're planning for your seating, you usually have this like really thought out idea of why people are sitting in the constellation that they're doing. And so hinting as well at why people were sitting next to each other or why people were matched together was also really fun to think about. So I think that was it for the DIYs that we made for our wedding. If you're DIYing for your wedding right now, or if you're looking for ideas, I hope this can serve as inspiration. And also, if you're in the middle of wedding planning, you got this. Enjoy the process and everything's gonna turn out fine. I feel like so many things went wrong on our wedding day, like the rain and the venue change, and I was on my period, but it was still a really, really, really wonderful day. And so if you're getting married soon, congrats and enjoy it. And if not, throw a party, just to throw a party because it's fun, and gather your friends and family and celebrate life. Yeah, if you want an in-depth tutorial of anything that I've talked about in this video, feel free to let me know. Follow me on Instagram for more frequent updates. I'm at @woollandbuggers, and I'll catch you hopefully soon in the next video. Bye!